Greetings! I'm Anthony F. Elmore, President and Founder of the proud Black Buddhist World Association. We're not only the Black Buddhist voice of America, we are the Black Buddhist voice of the world. And today, we bring you another exciting Black Buddhist lecture. My lecture today is Buddhism and Happiness. Like we are proud Black Buddhists. What does that mean? It means that we have dedicated ourselves to teach a Buddhism that is inclusive of our culture and of our history. We understand that in order to be able to attract those within the community who have no access to the Buddhist teachings, then we have created what is called a cultural pathway that brings those youth into the Buddhist teachings. Because what is it that our youth need? What is it that our society needs? Our society needs a level of enlightenment. Please understand that we practice the Lotus Sutra, the highest teachings of the Buddha, designed for a 21st century America. We do not associate with an archaic style of Buddhism, whereas you find an Asian on a mountain meditating. We practice only the teachings of the Lotus Sutra, whereas Buddhism is more education and not meditation. Not only in perception are we different, we follow the precepts of the Buddha Shakyamuni that mandates that Buddhism should be taught and practiced according to the customs of the region. Because we are Black, we include our Black Buddhist culture, history, and language in our practice. Our lecture today is what? We're going to talk about Buddhism and happiness. And of course, that Pharrell Williams song talks about a lot about happiness. Let's see what the teacher of the Buddhist Nichiren, Nichiren was a 13th century messenger of the Buddha Shakyamuni who taught the Lotus Sutra. And he understood that the highest teachings of the Buddha was in the Lotus Sutra. Now, let's see what Nichiren Shonin says. And he says, quote, "There is no true happiness other than upholding faith in the Lotus Sutra. This is what is meant by peace and security in their present existence and good circumstances in future existences. Though worldly troubles may arise, never let them disturb you. No one can avoid problems, not even saints, sages, or worthies." Now, this particular passage was taken from a writing or gosho of Nichiren, and the gosho is called Happiness in This World. Now, let's begin to study Buddhism and kind of get an understanding of happiness and how it works in Buddhism. And let's explain what Buddha Shonin meant when he says, there is no true happiness other than upholding faith in the Lotus Sutra. Now, we must understand there are two most important things in Buddhism. And that is, number one, the word is true happiness, and the next word is faith in the Lotus Sutra. See, Shakyamuni Buddha of India taught that true happiness, or only true happiness, comes from faith in the Lotus Sutra. Now, that's a kind of bold statement to make when you look at the world and you say, wait a minute, you the only guys that's got the truth? I think you're being a little presumptuous. But let's look at this statement a little further. Now, he says this. Let's go into another thing. In Buddhism, or in the Buddhism of Shakyamuni, many teachers have not clearly delineated the differences between Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and other religions. Like, what is the line of demarcation? What is the difference between Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism? What is the differences? Who talks about these differences? Who get really deep down in Buddhism and be able to explain the differences? Or what does the Buddhist teaching say about other religions? For example, in Christianity they say, thou shalt not have any more gods before thee, and this sort of thing. If you practice another religion, or if you study another religion, you're going to go to hell. But what does Shakyamuni Buddha say? Let me tell you. There's a writing in Nichiren Buddhism. It's a Go show, and these are letters that he wrote to his disciples. In the Go show, Nichiren Shonin explains what Shakyamuni Buddha says about other Buddhist teachings. And he really gives the line of demarcation. Now, in the Go Show Gift of Rights, it reads, quote, "The true path lies in the affairs of this world. The Golden Light Sutra states, quote, to have a profound knowledge of this world is itself Buddhism. The Nirvana Sutra states, quote, all of the non-Buddhist scriptures and writings in society are themselves Buddhist teachings and not non-Buddhist teachings. Now, what does this mean? This means that whether you are a Christian, whether you are Islamic, or whether you practice Judaism, Confucianism, and Hinduism, and all other faiths, Buddhism, all of these teachings are not non-Buddhist teachings, but the Lotus Sutra teaches they are Buddhist teachings, because Buddhism deals with the manifestations of the universal law. See, the Lotus Sutra explains all phenomena. In the Buddhist teachings of Shakyamuni of the Lotus Sutra, which is broken down by Tentai of China, he explains it in a theory called Ichinen Sanzan. Ichinen Sanzan means that there are 3,000 worlds in a momentary state of existence. So, if there are 3,000 worlds in a momentary state of existence, Buddhism teaches that existence includes the past, the present, and the future. So, we are dealing in the past, the present, and the future. And when Nichiren writes, there is no true happiness other than upholding faith in the Lotus Sutra, it is only the Lotus Sutra that deals with the 3,000 worlds in a momentary state of existence. In a momentary state of existence, this is inclusive of the past, the present, and the future. So in order for us to have a true sense of happiness or a true understanding of happiness, then we explain it from the standpoint of the Lotus Sutra. See, from the standpoint of Buddhism, when we talk about happiness, Buddhism actually makes happiness really about the halfway point. In other words, happiness is not the greatest achievement. Like in Buddhism, heaven is really not the greatest achievement of a Buddha. Did you hear me? Listen very carefully. In the Christian religion, the ultimate goal is to reach the state of heaven. This is an ideal state where everything is perfect in the world. Now, a Buddha, or in Buddhism, it teaches that inherently we all have what is called an enlightened nature. So what we as Buddhists seek to do, we do not necessarily, happiness is not our greatest goal. Now, let me explain what we mean by that. That happiness is not the greatest goal. The greatest goal for us is really not to go to heaven. But the greatest goal of a Buddhist is to cultivate one's Buddha nature. What does that mean? We live on this earth. Now, every day that we live on this earth, we can talk about heaven, and some of us know about hell because some of us catch hell every day. But how do we cultivate a life condition? A life condition that teaches us to be happy.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth.
In the song Happiness, Happy, now, he actually gave a Buddhist theory. Now, he says in the song, it's straight out of Buddhism, he says, can't nothing bring me down, my level's too high. Can't nothing bring me down, let me tell you now. Can't nothing bring me down, my level's too high. Can't nothing bring me down. Now, what Pharrell Williams is explaining, he is explaining actually a Buddhist theory. See, when he talks in the song, he says, it might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine is here, you can take a break. He says, I'm a hot air balloon that can go to space. With the air, I don't care, baby, I'm on the way. He said, clap along if you feel like a room without a roof, because I'm happy. Clap along because I feel that happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel that's what you want to do. Now, there is no difference between those words in the song Happy than what Nichiren Shonin says. He says what? In Buddhism, we have the 3,000 worlds and a momentary state of existence, and the 3,000 worlds of momentary state of existence is now. Is that finding happiness now. Happiness is a condition in life that exists not somewhere to where you got to go to heaven, not somewhere that you got to go that you have to die. But Buddhism teaches you that we develop our enlightened life condition, and with an enlightened life condition, we are able to find happiness within inside ourselves. Now, what is it that makes the Buddhist teaching different? What is it about Buddhism that's different? If Christianity and Buddhism, Judaism, and all other teachings are inclusive of Buddhism, or they're not non-Buddhist teachings, what is the difference? See, It is the Lotus Sutra that teaches the idea of the 10 worlds. And of the 10 worlds, the highest life condition that you strive for is enlightenment, or what we call Buddhahood. Now, what is Buddhahood? And how do we compare Buddhahood to happiness? See, a lot of people, their greatest goal in life is to be happy. For example, their world is, I'm going to go into a world of happy, and what some people do, some people who are unenlightened, they will go and they says, man, I'm going to do cocaine and crack all day long. I'm going to do it all day long, and I'm going to do cocaine and crack 24/7. Because all I'm going to do is get messed up. I'm going to get my head messed up. Now, these are people who are actually happy. Their greatest goal in life is happiness. I know some dudes that says, man, all I want to do is get on me some women, and the more women I get, the more happiness I got. And they live a hedonistic lifestyle that their whole life is pursuing happiness. Now, how is it that a Buddha is different? See, the difference between a Buddha or Buddhist, or what the Buddhist teachings, it teach you how to bring out your inherent Buddha nature, or your inherent enlightened nature. What is your enlightened nature? Your enlightened nature is Buddhahood. Now, in order to bring out this inherent nature, you bring it out through the study of the Lotus Sutra. Now, what is the Lotus Sutra, and why is the Lotus Sutra important? See, the Lotus Sutra is important because the Lotus Sutra is the mind of the Buddha. And the mind of the Buddha, or the mind of a human, or the spirit of a Buddha, is expressed in the voice. We learn the spirit because our spirit comes out. It has to manifest itself in a physical entity. So when you chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, that is the sound, or that is the spirit of the Buddha. And when you chant the spirit of the Buddha, then you are changing the environment. When you listen to the song Happy, happy express the spirit. So when you can hear the spirit of another person in the song, then you can be happy because the spirit brings out the spirit within you. So, let me bring this thing to a conclusion here. What is it that our society needs? Our society needs a level of enlightenment. What is the difference? The difference is that we want to become an enlightened society, and the Lotus Sutra is a teachings, not necessarily about happiness, but it is a teachings that deals with becoming an enlightened or an evolved society. Because in the Buddhist religion of the world of enlightenment, of the world of Buddhahood, of the world of Bodhisattva, these are worlds of which are life conditions where you dedicate yourself to evolving to being a higher human being. For example, those of you who maybe watch Star Trek, I mean, I am a Trekkie down to the bone. I am a Trekkie. In fact, Pharrell Williams, who wrote the song Happy, he's too a Trekkie because he grew up watching Star Trek. In 1980s, as a young man, he watched Carl Sagan. who was a tremendous scientist, and he does the Vulcan signs and things like that. Now, these people understand that in order for us to become a better society, then we must evolve. Star Trek is a movie. It's really Buddhism because Star Trek teaches about us evolving as human beings. See, we must evolve. Now, in the Buddhist teachings, there's what? Happiness, which in Buddhism there's what is called the 10 worlds. The 10 worlds, the lowest world is hell, the second is hunger, the third is called animality, the fourth is anger, the fifth is humanity, and the sixth world is heaven, or is happiness. But Buddhism teaches there's a greater world than even happiness, and that is the world of learning. Because this is a higher world when you put your sights in terms of learning and becoming an enlightened person. And there's an eighth world which is called self-realization. And there's a ninth world that we call bodhisattva. And this is kind of like the idea of being Christ-like or being good to help other people. These are conditions. But the highest condition of total, absolute, indestructible happiness, and this is the world of Buddhahood. And the world of Buddhahood is a world that's inherently within every human being. But you tap the world of Buddhahood by tapping into an environment of the Buddha. Now, what is the environment of the Buddha? The environment of the Buddha is the Lotus Sutra. Now, what is the title of the Lotus Sutra? The title of the Lotus Sutra is called Myoho Renge Kyo. But it was Nichiren who added the word namu, namas, which means devotion. So when you devote yourself to the mystic law of cause and effect teachings, that means that you have committed yourself to become a human being who is evolving. For example, I hear some people says, I'm going to go to church and I'm going to get happy. And it's good. And many people go to church to get happy. Now, how does this Buddhism differ from that? What the Buddhist teachings teach you is that you practice Buddhism to tap your enlightened nature. Now, what does that mean? Tapping an enlightened nature means that you have committed yourself to evolving. In the life of Dr. Martin Luther King, I remember so clearly that people wasn't all in love with Dr. Martin Luther King. Most of the people, most of the ministers were saying, why is he coming in here in Memphis to causing trouble? They were against Dr. Martin Luther King. They said, why is he causing trouble? These were unenlightened people because they were not enlightened to the idea of equality. They had lived a life of a settlement. Like even when you go back to Harriet Tubman, Harriet Tubman was taking some slaves to freedom. And these slaves were going to run back and they weren't going to run away because they did not have the courage to leave, to walk out of slavery. They did not want to evolve. Harriet Tubman pulled a pistol on them and said, you are going to be free whether you want to be free or not. You see, the greatest thing and the greatest happiness that can happen to a society is that we as human beings evolve, that we become enlightened people. Now, The brothers on the corner, some of them walk around with their pants hanging on their ass. They are walking around trying to find some happiness. Happiness to some of these brothers is, well, I'm trying to get a job. They ain't trying to get a job. Or if I'm trying to get a job, how can I be happy? What these brothers need is they need a teachings that will give them an enlightenment, a teaching to where they can evolve to be the best human beings that they can be. Now, when they come to study the Buddhist teachings, and we who teach Buddhism have opened an opportunity for the young brothers, they can come and get a teachings of enlightenment. Now, enlightenment is not what you say, happiness all the time, but happiness, or what a Buddha understands, is that you have to sometimes make sacrifices. You have to devote yourself to learning. You have to devote yourself to the skills of being an evolved person. You have to master the law of cause and effect. And so when you chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and you practice and you study the Lotus Sutra, you will find that you will are becoming an evolved person. Let me bring this to a close. When you hear the song Happy, and you hear that soul clap, you can say, wow, here's a happiness. This is something that's great. And the people at the proud Black Buddhist World Association want to include this sort of thing of bringing an enlightened nature to our society. Thank you very much.